Happy Lohman is Willie's younger son. He's lived in the shadow of his older brother Biff most of his life and seems to be almost ignored, but he still tries to be supportive toward his family. He has a very restless lifestyle and is a womanizer and dreams of moving beyond his current job as an assistant to the assistant buyer at his local store, but is unfortunately willing to cheat a little in order to do so by taking bribes. He is always looking for approval from his parents. "Hey, Ma, I'm getting married. Look, Pa, I'm losing weight," but rarely gets any and even goes as far to make things up just for attention. He tries often to keep his family's perception of each other positive or happy by defending each of them during their many arguments, but still has a most turbulent relationship with Linda, who looks down on him for his lifestyle and apparent cheapness, despite him giving them money. This makes us question, what does Linda see in Happy that she doesn't like? The things that she doesn't like about her husband. Charlie is Willie's wisecracking yet understanding neighbor. He pities Willie and frequently lends him money and comes over just to play cards with Willie, although Willie often treats him very poorly, is very rude and insulting. Willie is just jealous of him because his son was more successful. Charlie offers Willie a job many times during his visits to its office, yet Willie declines every time, even after he loses his job as a salesman. Linda is the one that tells the boys he has to take $50 a week from Charlie just to stay afloat. The play structure resembles stream of consciousness. Willie drifts between his living room, downstage, to the apron, and flashbacks of an idyllic past, and also to fantasize conversations with his brother Ben. Ben, Willie's older brother, became a diamond tycoon after a detour to Africa. He is dead, but Willie frequently speaks to him in his hallucinations of the past. Ben frequently boasts, "When I was 17, I walked into the jungle, and when I was 21, I walked out. And by God, I was rich." He is Willie's role model, and although he's much older and has no relationship with Willie, preferring to assert his superiority over his younger brother, he represents Willie's idea of the American dream success story and is shown coming by the Lohman's house while on business trips to share stories. Whether or not any of these encounters with Ben were true is uncertain. However, this is what Willie senses in his mind, and it is Ben that he calls for when he needs help and guidance. In the list of characters, the woman who has an affair with Willie is referred to only as the woman. It makes no difference who she is, and she represents probably and most likely many women. One of the big symbols in the play is the symbol of the stockings, because Willie gives stockings to the women in his life, all of the women in his life, except for his wonderful wife, Linda. Death of a Salesman is unique in its presentation, is unique in the complexity of the mind of Willie Lohman. When we are in the present, the characters abide by the rules of the set, entering only through the stage door to the left. However, when we visit Willie's past, these rules are removed, with characters openly moving through the walls. In other words, whenever the characters are in the house, that is when Willie is 63 years old. That is when Linda is 59 years old. And the boys are 34 and 32 years old. But if we were to be able to see this on stage, whenever Willie and Linda move outside of the house, that is when Willie is having his visions. The term flashback is a term used in the movies, a cinema term for these scenes, and it's often used in reference to Death of a Salesman. However, Miller himself speaks of these experiences as mobile concurrences. In fact, flashbacks would show an objective image of the past. Miller's mobile concurrences, however, rather show highly subjective memories. Furthermore, as Willie's mental state deteriorates, the boundaries between past and present are destroyed, and the two start to exist in parallel, which means we can't trust anything that Willie says. We can't trust anything that Willie thinks. But what happens at the end of the play is that Willie is unable to understand the difference between reality and between his imaginings. This is the complexity of the human mind. This is stream of consciousness. This is mental examination on stage. And this is what makes Death of a Salesman unique. It is not until well within Act 1 that any of the truth actually is revealed. Linda sits down with her two sons and she tells them the trouble that her husband is having, the trouble that their father is living within, the trouble of his mind. Linda is passively supportive and docile when Willie talks unrealistically about hopes for the future, although she seems to have good knowledge of what is really going on. She chides her sons, particularly Happy, for not helping Willie more, and supports Willie lovingly, despite the fact that Willie sometimes treats her poorly, ignoring her opinions over those of others. The most famous scene for Linda is the attention must be paid monologue. In this beautiful piece of written English language, she begs her sons to pay attention. And here Miller makes the comparison of a small man, his life being worthwhile, that a small man's life is just as worthwhile as a big man's life or an important man's life. She says that Willie Loman was never important. He never made a lot of money, but his life is important. And the love that he has for his sons is important, and that everything that he did for the love of his sons. She is the first to realize that Willie is contemplating suicide at the beginning of the play, and here she urges Biff to make something of himself while expecting Happy to help Biff to do so. She demands that the boys pay attention and help their father and to stop fighting with him. The thing that is hard to understand is how could Linda have gone on for 17 years without understanding or acknowledging, claiming that she does not know what the actual conflict is between Willie and Biff. At the end of Act 1, we see that Linda has finally succeeded in getting Willie to go to sleep. The boys have given Willie an unrealistic hope for the future, that they will borrow $15,000 from a man who doesn't even remember any of them. But it makes Willie happy, if only for the moment, and he's able to sleep for this one night. But at the same time, while Willie and Linda are holding on to a romantic dream, Biff is downstairs with the realistic symbol of the gas pipe that Willie is using to commit suicide. In Act 2, both Biff and Willie wake up to a new day. They both have big plans. They both have convinced themselves of untruths. Willie has convinced himself that he can go to his boss and ask to be located in the New York area so he won't have to travel anymore. And Biff has bought into Willie's dream that he can perhaps borrow $15,000 and start a business with his brother Happy. Even though Biff understands that his father is very, very ill, when he wakes up the next day, he's actually convinced himself, he's fallen into the Willie Loman convincing of himself that this might be a reality. But both of them are hit very hard with the reality of what their lives have become. Willie goes to ask for a relocation and he is fired. Biff goes to ask to borrow money from a man he hasn't seen in years, and he remembers that he has stolen from this man, that he was never a salesman, that he was a shipping clerk, and he steals a valuable piece of personal property from this man. And this is the beginning of the unraveling of the truth that happens in Act 2. The mystery of why these two people can never be truthful with each other, and why they both continue to live to avoid each other, because they do this. They avoid each other for 17 years. When they're together, they're both very nervous about confrontations, and why they avoid the truth. What I want you to do from this moment is to take this information and read the play. And if you have the opportunity, I want you to watch the play. I know that it is available on Hulu, and I have given that information available to you within the website. So this is an important piece of American literature, and it's important that you take the time and keep the text in front of you as you read, as you listen to, or as you watch the play. There are also audio readings available that I have posted online. So now's the time to step forward and tackle Death of a Salesman.